I'm going now to arguably again one of the top experts on India-America ties, Lisa Curtis. She was part of the first Trump administration, now a senior fellow and director of the Indo-Pacific Security Program at the Center for New American Security. You can't get better than Lisa Curtis and Ashley Tellis speaking one after another, two very rich insights there. Thank you very much, Ms. Curtis, for joining us. I want your key takeaways for an Indian audience from this first bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the re-elected President Trump.
Well, I think it was a successful meeting. The fact that it happened so early in the Trump administration is very notable. It shows the emphasis and importance of India to the United States. And you could really see from the press spray, from the press conference, that there is a warm friendship between the two leaders that very much came across, their mutual respect for one another. And then if you look at the very lengthy joint statement and all of the wide-ranging agreements that were made, I think it's very clear that the U.S.-India relationship is off to a very good start under this second Trump administration. There was an emphasis on military cooperation. They talked about the co-production of Javelin missiles and Stryker combat vehicles. They talked, the U.S. even opened the door for India to potentially buy the F-35 aircraft, very high-end technology, something that India would very much be interested in. So I think, between everything that was discussed and the kind of warmth and respect that the two leaders showed for one another, I think we can, safely say that the relationship is off to a good start.
There's a lot of chatter in India about the timing of that Trump press conference on tariffs, given the fact that you have a visiting head of state. Just hours before you meet him, you do a press conference where, apart from threatening reciprocal tariffs against all countries in particular, he repeatedly mentioned India in that press conference, calling it tariff abuser. That doesn't really set the stage. I mean, in terms of optics, those aren't ideal optics, Lisa Curtis. It's almost as if he's using tariffs as a negotiating, bargaining tactic to put the visiting dignitary down. Or at least that's the effort.
Well, this is the way that Trump operates. He operated in the same fashion in the first Trump administration. 24 to 48 hours before he would have a meeting with Prime Minister Modi, he would tweet out something about India's high tariffs. And I think this is a bit of a negotiating tactic that he likes to use. He likes to get out there with a very tough message and threaten to retaliate or reciprocate, however you want to put it. So I don't think that is surprising. But you could also argue that he got that issue out of the way. He sort of made his point before the meeting. And so then, you could have a more positive engagement, interaction. He's already stated his case. He wants to see India reduce tariffs, and they have agreed to a trade negotiation. The question is, will the two sides be able to come to a trade deal?
So let's spend some time talking about it, given that Robert Lighthizer, Piyush Goyal were discussing, negotiating a limited trade agreement, and that came to naught in the first term. Now we have effectively a month and a half till the 2nd of April to be able to come to an agreement on a bilateral trade agreement. Given the differences in approach on issues like agricultural products, dairy products, and so many others, is there enough room, bandwidth, time, mind space to be able to get a trade deal done in this limited window?
Yeah, I think it's extremely ambitious. I would be very surprised if they could make a trade agreement within, the next several weeks. They couldn't do it in 4 years during the first Trump administration. I think, there's things India can do that will help narrow the trade deficit with the United States. Things like, importing more military equipment and importing more oil and gas. This will help, but it certainly, is not going to satisfy Trump. I think he really is looking for India to reduce tariffs on items that the U.S. exports to India, medical devices, agriculture items, and other things. So I think, really the pressure is on Prime Minister Modi and what he can do in terms of delivering some of these, reductions
No,
in
but some of
tariffs.
this is undeliverable if it were. For example, we've got the gap on dairy products, agricultural products on our screen right now. There is a big political constituency that Prime Minister Modi needs to deal with back home. There are millions of small dairy farmers in states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, elsewhere, who will be up in arms if India gets flooded with cheap dairy products or cheap American agricultural produce. It'll be great for President Trump in his desire to make America great, but Prime Minister spoke about Indian national interests and the need to put them first from his lens.
Yeah, well, I think, we're going to see again, I think the things that make President Trump and Prime Minister Modi respect each other, they have the same kind of leadership styles. They're really looking out for their own people, their own country, and that's going to bump up against the idea of coming to some kind of fair trade agreement. So I think, we're going to see how much the trade issue impacts the overall strategic relationship because frankly, there's a lot at stake when it comes to the US-India overall relationship.
You
And
spoke of India importing more defense systems from the United States. I mean, the last big one was the GE 404 engines for the Indian light combat aircraft. That's still stuck up. I mean, so how can India trust America as a reliable weapon supplier given our past history during the wars and now even recently, so much hype and hoopla around the announcement and then delayed delivery followed?
Yeah, I think the US can make the same case. I was in the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, where we made the decision to allow India to have access to armed drone technology, the first non-NATO country to get such access. But it literally took 7 years to negotiate to complete the deal for the MQ-9s. So I think the U.S. can make the same argument that there's a lot of bureaucracy within the Indian system. It takes a long time to complete these major defense deals. So I think, each side has issues that make it difficult
No, but
to.
the counter to that is India doesn't really get preferential commercial rates. It's not as if there's a deep discount for a key ally, as would be the case with some other countries in terms of the pricing of those products. And for example, with the F-35, there's unlikely to be a transfer of technology or joint production, which again means you're spending all of that to buy off the shelf with no prospects of transfer of technology, and that would be difficult because, for example, India operates the S-400 missile defense systems, and that's something America would be uncomfortable with. So basically, unlike, say, the Rafale, where there is an element of joint production and production in India, technology transfer with a very expensive fighter jet like the F-35, that would be inconceivable, at least at this moment.
Yeah, well, of course, India is not an ally of the United States, but we still, would like to see more defense cooperation, more, co-production is also on the table for, like I said, the Javelin missiles, the Stryker combat vehicles, all of that's on the table, and it's going to be hard work. The U.S. will have to look at its technology transfer concerns. It will be looking at, how much has the Russians been able to penetrate the Indian military establishment? What does that mean for the safety of, U.S. technology that may be entering India? So there are so many questions and things that need to be worked out. And, I'm glad we're talking about these because on the one hand, it was a very positive engagement, very, set the stage for the next 4 years. An ambitious agenda, to be sure, but now we're talking about some of the realities of what needs to get accomplished and some of the obstacles that they're going to face in carrying these programs forward.
So they've spoken of India hosting the Quad Summit. If that happens at the head of state level, that will mean President Trump would be in India arguably sometime before fall, around fall. What do you see happen between now, February and fall?
Well, yeah, I think a lot does have to happen. But first, let me point out that if Trump does indeed go to India this fall, that will be the first time that a U.S. president has, made the trek to India in his first year. So that's quite significant in and of itself, but it also means that the two sides need to work hard. They need to, prepare for a Quad summit. That takes a lot of work. Figuring out what will be the deliverables, what will be, Trump's stamp on the Quad. Of course, it was President Trump that revived the Quad back in 2017. But now, what kind of new initiatives are they going to be working on, the four countries together? That's one thing. The second is, like we said, how are they going to push forward on these defense sales issues? What needs to happen here in the United States? How can India sort of prod its own defense bureaucracy on these issues? And third, on the trade issue, that's probably the most difficult. Our trade negotiator has not been confirmed. Jameson Greer, I think he will be confirmed. But this, is something that he has to get into place. They have to start these trade negotiations. So I think we're going to see a lot of back and forth between U.S. and Indian officials before this visit by Trump in the fall, which is only, a few months away.
Well, there's a lot that needs to get done, if at all it can get done, between a government that is extremely transactional in the United States and one in India which is determined to protect its national interests. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Lisa Curtis, for taking out time and joining us on an important day. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.